Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities show. We are recording here at 3:30 on Friday afternoon, March 1st, Barry. It's March 1st.
And it
Yep,
hasn't been boring. In January, we said it's going to be an exciting year and have all kinds of
exactly.
action, right?
Absolutely. We said it will not be boring. My name, everybody, that this is your first time listening. My name's Ben Maldonado, and I'm always here with my partner, Barry Hadarachi. And we always talk about time because time flies, and we are in March. We have new monthly bars, a lot of exciting timing that's coming in. I mean, the next 2, 3 months are going to be really, really volatile and really, really fun for trading.
hmm
So today I'm going to be covering cotton, gold, crude oil, and I want to end with cocoa because it's kind of a special situation I want to talk about. It's a really good, I think, instructional chart to look at. So we're gonna go over cocoa. Barry every week covers what we call the big five, which is ES, bonds, gold, crude oil, copper, the dollar, and the euro. And without any further ado, let's jump in because, as I said, a lot of interesting timing coming in here.
And we've had a lot of interesting timing. I
Yep.
was just thinking about this when this squared out. We had this move up. It was 90 degrees by 45,
Yep.
and we stalled out for a couple of weeks. I remember the talk at the time was, if we take this out, the 90, this 48.51, then next stop would be 5,200. I mean,
Yep.
really,
And
that's the
here we
next.
are on the way.
And here we are, just not too far away.
Hmm.
And well, that's just how it works. So ever since we got on top of 48.51, we've been bullish. We've been talking about the upside, and we didn't get a chance to. We've been talking about the upside. I was looking for the 30-minute chart, but I think I closed it. So let's get back into the daily. It's really not much. It's not complicated when the markets are running. It only gets, like we always talk about, it only gets a little bit of a pause every time we get into a key position of square. So for us, it's the 50% of the square or the full square. So,
Hmm.
we had our 50 over here. It's a full square, and we're coming up on a 50% again. And here we're 90 by 135, which is
And
which is a square.
and that gets it complicated because the timing we always got to look at, right? The 90 is important.
90 is very important, of course. And we also have a calendar day count. I saw in one of the well, here we have from the October low, we have 135 by 135 coming up on calendar day. This is the cash index.
What's your date there
It's
on that
March
timing?
10th. March 10th.
Nice. Hey, we got Rebel Yell Cycle on March 8th.
March 8th. Well, there you go.
Yep.
So,
It's always nice to get different sources, isn't it? I mean, they have
mhm.
nothing to do with each other, and it's great when they hit like that.
Yeah, one or two like that is good. Rebel Yell cycle and the square is nice. It just
Hmm.
makes me nervous when we had like 15 things lining up. Then everything like cancels each other out for some reason. I swear.
Yeah,
That's what I
true.
always see. But two or three, yeah, that's nice.
Uh-huh.
So here we're looking at, the cash getting up to about 51.83
Hmm.
by March 10th. So we have a potential square formation here. And all that means is, there's a chance that we finish this leg at that point or in that area, give or take a
Hmm.
couple of bars. So
Right.
watching that with one eye and the other eye is on this, which is squaring now.
Yep.
So, I mean, here we have time, that's great. But if you move it, I like these. If you look at the flavor of all these markets, and if you look at NVIDIA, we looked at the other day, some of these other technology markets, I mean, these 45-day runs are really important. So I'm watching, always keeping one eye on if we're making a 45-day run. So this is March 8th. This is your date.
Right on the Rebel Yell Cycle date.
So we
Interesting.
have a March 8th there. And
Hmm.
from over here, from October low, we have 135 calendar days on the other chart.
Hmm.
So that March 8th, 10th looks like a really important time. So
Right.
just if you're new, and even if you're not, this we can't talk enough about these things because this is all we do. Um, right?
Right. Right.
And the enough is it's sort of understanding what that means. So okay, we have March 8th and 10th, we have something coming up. Well, what's coming up? What's coming up is a potential squaring out. Well, what does that mean? That means it's a place where the current leg could terminate.
Yep.
And what does the termination look like? Well, I mean, here's the termination. We terminated here. You know,
Hmm.
we had to run up and finished. If you take the entire leg, that's where it finished. Terminated here. It's basically where the swing highs and lows come in. Now,
Right.
all of these are minor, you could say minor termination points in the swing.
Hmm.
And you can look at the big corners and say, well, these are major ones. The thing is, as it's coming up, it's hard. That's why we want to look at the weeklies and things and see if there's a bigger cycle nested in there. But no matter how big the cycle, usually it shows up on the daily um, in some meaningful way. So here we have March 8th and 10th, which is not too far away.
Next week.
And that's in time, right? We have 135 calendar days, and we have a potential 45-day run. And that sure looks like a blow-off run to me.
Hmm.
And that's going up into March 8th and March 10th, 2 days apart, 2 degrees apart. That's not too bad. So we got to keep that in mind. It's coming up. The other thing that it means is, so we talked about a termination point. The other thing that means is usually, majority of the time, when you have a good time and price point up ahead, the market will run up into that or run down into it, depending on the trend. So the fact that that's set up here in the future, up until 8th and 10th, we could expect the market to be bullish. That's the other way
Hmm.
to look at it, you know?
Sure.
So you don't jump in there trying to sell it every other day.
No.
And actually, we don't do that anyway. I mean, even with the square, we don't, because what you want to do is have it square out, and we have to, have some proof. And some people use like an indicator to turn, like RSI or something to turn down to give you that mechanical signal. Or you can wait for the market to show you like a lower high,
Yeah.
or
Structure.
the first counter trend, like here,
Hmm.
we had 2 bars down, then we had like a sort of an outside day reversal, inside day. So as soon as you catch that inside day, when the low of the inside day gets taken out, I mean, that's the place to get in. So that caught
Hmm.
that move, right? So
Hmm.
like that, there are all kinds of things that show up near highs. Well, here's another case of we had the high, down day, inside bar, took out the low, and there you go.
Hmm.
Of course, that bar would have given you some heat, but
Right.
it's never handed to you on a silver platter. But if you know what to look for, it's easy to see.
Hmm.
And so to say, we don't jump in front of it. We want it to make the high and then show us, what the strength is like. Can it blow through all of that 90 days and 135 days and get to 6,000? Well, sure, why not? you know,
It can. Right.
yeah, markets can do anything. Then that's why we want to wait, pause at those key points and wait to see what happens. I mean, we weren't pausing and waiting all through here, but we did pause when it got to 90, right?
Hmm.
So that's just how that works. So for the S&P, not much. I think we stay the course. The 30-minute charts that we post every day, I mean, that will keep you sort of, give you the early warning. 30-minute
Right.
charts like the canary,
Right.
it's an easy way to keep an eye on things. And then you watch the daily levels to see what we have next. And if you notice, after we had this 48.51 and I had this 49.46, there's really nothing till we get to 4,200. Like I don't have uh, any other lines.
Right.
And for a couple of 100 points. And that's because it's just very open. There's not much going on. It all kind of stacks up between 52 and 53 is really where it comes up, that box up here. And so we'll see what happens, let's see what happens with time. Let's see if we have price to boot with it or not. But for now, obviously we have to stay bullish. But with the one eye on these cycles, right? We have the 90, we have the 135 by 135. So March 8th and 10th is kind of the time frame we're looking at. Anything you want to add to that?
Just that your 5,200 target, I have a monthly half square up at 51.84, so it's in the neighborhood.
Right there, right there.
Right in there. Yep.
Mhm. So let's take a look at the weekly chart. We have that little ABCD we drew up a while back.
Pulled right up into it, isn't it?
Well, if I've ever seen anything getting pulled up, well, this is one. It's really getting.
Right. Right.
And this 81 is really interesting because you can see how we paused right at the square. We ran up
Mm-hmm.
and, we spent almost a month there, 1, 2, 3, 4 bars.
Right.
And then we broke to the upside. And when we broke that, we talked about how that's bullish and the market would have to, we didn't expect it to go higher. And I even joked about, well, that opens up the entire 50% of the square, next half of the square, which would get us up into, the 4,500, 45, 44.65. So, we got room to run for sure.
Yeah.
But this ABCD looks good because it's basically a nice Gartley that starts here,
Mm-hmm.
XABC. And we can run that if you want. Why not?
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah,
Let's see what it looks like.
And how often do you get to do Gartleys on a weekly chart? Not
Yeah. Let's see the equilibrium lines if they're catching
Mhm.
price now.
So the box is right there. It's between 41, 51, 46,
51.46.
which
Yeah.
we just hit today. I mean, we're right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And 5,400. I mean, that's like the sweet spot, right? Anywhere in there, I think we could say it's a Gartley and
Right.
meets the requirements. And of course, the equal legs, which is kind of smack in the middle, is around 52.60, let's say, right in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the Gartley comes in. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Otherwise, the chart just gets a little too.
Too messy. Yeah, we just got on top of that line too.
Well, the nice thing is, man, it's nice to catch the stock market when it's bullish, like, so it's bullish now. So let's
Mm-hmm.
make the best out of it while we can. Not much on the weekly to say other than we're moving. We got that target we just looked at. And the only other square we might want to look at would be
72 you were looking at a while ago.
that's every Tuesday there. I mean, the 90 is another one, which we got on top of here.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also look at 52. We have 2 squares up coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Something to note.
And some timing that looks like, well, no, that's a couple weeks out. That's April.
Yeah, that's April. So that's April 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Here, not so much timing, but 51.86. See, it's right around 5,200 again.
Yep.
So something's up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, that's enough for the ES. I think you got.
Everybody's got the view now.
Yeah, we covered everything. We got the levels.
Stay bullish, but keep one eye on the exits.
And the times coming up, right?
Yep.
So bonds basically is well, it didn't do much, kind of consolidated this week. We got on top of it 1916, but we're still smack in the middle of the box here, and that is resistance. So till we really kind of get up and get established above it, there's really no long side to trade here. In the big picture, we didn't even get to the 50%. We did get up to 72 on the counter trend, which is pretty good. Did the ABCD. Sure, maybe we can get a little bit of a bounce. I think this is an ABCD rallying up on the 4-hour chart, if you look. Not much. I think I think I'd wait for more evidence. Either we're gonna settle above 1916, or let's say 19 and a half. And to the downside, if we take out the, sort of the ABCD level, let's say 17 or even 18 at this point, if we take that out, which takes out this formation here, we should get down to 16. If we get down to 16, 1609, I don't think it'll hold this time. So then it's probably going to break to the downside till then. Let's see what happens. To the upside, I really can't get all that excited because we have, first of all, we have this entire box to get through. And the only way, I guess, even to get a few points, it would be to really look at this, having it settle above 1916, which it hasn't done yet. We just barely poked above today. Let's go and look at the.
It's an on the one hand and the other hand thing. The ABCD's holding, but we're not exactly screaming out of there.
Right. I mean, a whole week of consolidating is.
Yeah, I know. Just above it.
But, weekly chart, what do we have? If we want to call this a low, we ran up Here's your first counter trend,
First pullback. Yep.
pullback. So at a minimum, can we do an ABCD up? Sure, that's possible.
Hmm.
Um, but with the markets, you never know. That's why we lean on the technicals.
Hmm.
So here we go. So that gives you a target way up in
130s, it looks
yeah,
like.
36,
Hmm.
right? That's quite a bit.
It's a big move.
Hmm. So yeah, that's possible. Let's see what happens on the daily. First of all, that's why we watch the daily. So if you go back to that, you can see how settling above 1916 will have a very early sort of you know evidence, if it's going to rally or not. So if it can hold
Hmm.
above that, what was it, 30, 36 was it? Yeah.
Yep.
So here's 34 would be 50%. So just
And
waiting to confirm above 19 and a half will potentially open up. Obviously it has to take all this out, the 72, but it could open up all the way to, 134, 135.
hmm
Um, which is interesting because, that's kind of where the old highs are. And this big,
yeah, that
this big,
oh, that big box
yeah.
resistance is up there.
Mhm. And that band up here is around 135, 136. So let's see what happens. For now, we're just watching the resistance. We're waiting for it to settle above 1916.
Yeah, we need more evidence to get good odds.
Get all bullied up, yeah.
Hmm.
So we looked at the weekly. Move on to crude, which is trading very nicely. Finally
Very
into our trend
nicely.
line
Yep.
from the highs.
Yep. Tapping that trend line.
Tapping it, tapping it. So crude's been behaving very well. If you guys have been watching crude with us, we called out this 54 by 54 square back in December, and we were expecting it to make higher lows, which it did along this trend line. And then we were waiting for it to get on top of the 50% of the square, which it did. Eventually, after all this grinding right around it last week. And slowly we're moving higher. So I think really the 83 is really the next resistance that I have. We'll see what happens. Now, if we can consolidate between the 76, 77, and 83, still very bullish. That's really all I have for that.
Hmm.
For crude, not much. It's moving. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover a little bit of that, so I'll
Okay.
hold my comments for that.
Yeah. And hopefully everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do.
Hmm.
Weekly, well, you can see there, there's a bit of a triangle forming, and it's very possible. I think the probability is we're going to break to the upside. And weekly, if you've been following for the last several weeks, you can see how we're making very nice higher lows and a couple of inside bars. Remember the inside bars we talked about, followed by breakouts and wider range. And you can see how this week we had a wider range. And yeah, since you're covering, I don't have a whole lot more to add.
Okay.
It's a big winner today. When nobody's looking,
I know it's
gold
beautiful,
decides to
isn't
take
it?
off.
Yeah, it looks fantastic too.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, like you guys know, we had support at the 50% of the square right around 2006. And we're joking about how it's been holding for months. And because it held, we were expecting it to at least go up and check the top of the range of this box. And I talked about how the thing you can do at the bottom of the box is to get long and trade to the other side of the box. And well, here we are. Probably not a bad place to take some profits because we are at the resistance. And just know if we break out of that range, then we're definitely getting into about 2188, 2190. And if we get that far, why not 2200? So
Yeah,
that's what we have for the upside. And if we do an ABCD off of here,
right up to the 90.
yeah, that would, yeah, from there. But if we take it from that spike, we get well above 2250
Hmm.
and get us into 2300. So We'll see. But
The
for now,
tell was the tell was they could not get it below 2000, man. They
no, no, look at that.
kept trying.
Hmm.
Yep.
And then we got the classic false break right there.
Yep. That which
And
is
after
usually
that,
what happens before the move.
hmm and off we go. So
Yep.
gold is bullish, just just because we have a resistance here at the quarter square. Once it gets settled above, like let's say 2097, clearly opens up the rest of the way up into 2189, 90 area,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Gold is really something you ought to trade on a weekly chart, not day to day. You know?
Hmm. A lot of shenanigans day to day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, well, I don't know, not much to say. We had a triangle and we broke it to the upside. There you go. That's the
It's
end of
time
the
to go.
story.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. And we talked about how 2000 held. Then last week, we were higher high, higher low, and this week we followed through all the way to 2100, which is what we were looking at. And isn't it incredible? Like if you look at the box, it's between 2000 and 2100, and that's exactly where we had our
Yeah.
levels.
Hmm.
And you can see all this price action happened to below 22,000, and then now we flip to the upside, so we're above that. Looks good. The key thing here is not the 2000 or the 2100. The key thing to watch from here is this 50% of the square, which is
Yeah. Settle above that.
2057, right? Yeah, we want to settle above that. It's tried before, right in
Hmm.
here, the big
Hmm.
try. Now let's see if we can do this next couple 3 weeks. If it holds above this, it's really, really bullish. And I'm
Looks
talking,
like the top of your score is what, 2400?
yeah,
Yeah.
20, yeah, it's 2400 bullish at some
Hmm.
point, right? But long as
Yeah.
we can hold above that, and we somehow manage to sort of grind above 2100, then it really opens it up, because
Hmm.
this level is done now. If we move above and uh, manage to sort of settle above that 50% of the square, all this becomes support,
Yeah.
for the future. So, and these are the old highs we used to think was nosebleed, but they're not.
Hmm.
They're just going to be the new lows, new support areas.
That's right.
And it's cool to watch all that happen in
Hmm.
real time. So copper, not so much. Copper kind of went on vacation this week.
It can't break away from that half square.
I know. I swear. Sometimes
The
I'm like,
magnet.
yeah, you gotta wonder, right? Like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, if you guys missed it, we talked about copper. We went through, I think, a little bit more, spend a little bit more time on it. So if you want to catch it, you can catch that. But right now, not much to say. The whole thing here is like 384 is,
Continue to write options on copper.
yeah, there you go. 384. I mean, it's basically what happened was we ran up and we kind of came down, and we're holding on the line,
Hmm.
which I would say it's more bullish than bearish. If it's
Agreed.
bearish, it would really
Agreed.
sort of get under it.
Yep. Agreed.
So on the line is more or less bullish and looks like it's moving higher. And the resistance, I mean, the not on the chart, but just through the price action is really around 4, like 397, 398. Let's just say 4 right there. And up until there, so we have 86 to about 4, the upside. And if it gets beyond that, then it opens up all the way to 90, it'll be 455. Let's see. So far, we've been, even though it's been a slow, boring kind of a market, we've been on it. We got the lows,
And you got the balance point is that half square.
got the half square. I mean, we got a bunch of stuff over the months and months, but um, the important thing to remember is, when the market's tightening up like this, like Coco was doing before he blasted off, this is, this almost guaranteed that we're going to have some kind of a breakout in copper.
And it'll be a big move.
And it'll be a big, fast, big move, lots of money
Hmm.
involved. So
Hmm.
just, yeah, keep an eye
Pay
on,
attention.
pay attention, because these are the times. Anytime I look at a chart and I'm kind of half yawning, that's just for me a signal for me to like wake up and watch it.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm. So weekly, what can we say? We have 364.5 is a line that we have, is the only line we have. And we talked about how long it's above that line, the weekly, that market's in pretty good shape. It's firm and can bounce off of that area in which we have been, and we did just recently, a couple 2 weeks ago. And really to get this party going, we need to really settle about 4, which is kind of the number we remember from the daily chart. So up until then, this is all sort of consolidation. So we, just the lower boundary, upper boundary, that's a box on the daily chart. So once we can break out of that, I think it opens up all the way to, well, this one, almost 475.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling, if we do it this time, it's going to go way higher than 475. So watch it carefully. We did break this big triangle, and it's kind of winding up so quietly. I think copper needs to be watched carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Dollar also took a little bit of a breather, but the
It's
breather.
not weak though. It's interesting. It's holding your level.
Yep, it's not weak at all. Well, it puts it in a very interesting spot. I mean, it's above the 50% of the square is kind of what we use for balance, and looks like it's holding well above it. And long as it's above that, we can always take a run up into 107. Where we're in a good trend. So watch that level. If we take out the 50% of the square, which is around 103.5, then we could get back into doing what copper is doing, which is sort of wrapping around the half square. So that's possible. Anyway, just watch that. We're bullish above 103 and 103.60, 50-60, let's say, give it 10 cents. And if we get below that, then we have to kind of pause and see what's happening.
You know what else is interesting is that
Mhm.
gold is showing all this strength without the dollar having to be weak.
Exactly. Yeah. And Bitcoin, Bitcoin is doing its
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
We're watching. So at least we know the level to watch here. And looking at the weekly dollar, we have an inside bar. So the thing to really note here is if you remember the daily chart, the lows were pretty close to the weekly lows were pretty close to the 50% of the square, right? And highs are open. Highs are open. So we have an inside week. So next week, if we take out low of this week, it's possible we take out the 50% of the square, and we're going to go a little lower. On the flip side, if we take out the high of the bar, if we take out high this week's high, then I think we have a breakout. They'll break out to the upside. We're going to continue on, and this ends up becoming just sort of a little pullback on the way up. That's my take.
I think that's a good advice, and it's being resilient with strong commodities, which is interesting, especially gold.
Yeah, and we're watching that low
and crude.
We're watching that low and that high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or this low and that high. So it's very tight. And it's pretty much the same story with the euro. I mean, we got on top of 108, and so we're not below it, so it's kind of firm, So moving on to the weekly euro, pretty much the same case. We have the 108, and what an interesting place to get all congested, eh? I mean, look,
Yeah.
spent a whole month wrapping around 108. So this is
Mm-hmm.
how these levels work. They kind of like a magnet. Sometimes it'll pull it in and hold it in, and other times it'll repel. It's kind of like the fuse lines.
Mm-hmm.
So here we got under it, but then not quite, sold off. Then we got pulled back into the 108, flipped to the other side. So what do we have here? We have an inside bar, kind of like the inside bar in the dollar. So here, if we take out the high of the inside bar next week, of course we can go higher, maybe check the 110 area.
Mm-hmm.
We take out the low, two things happen. One is we take out the line, we take out the 108 area. The other one is that naturally if we take out the low of a inside bar on a downtrend, we're probably going to continue the trend lower.
Sure.
So that's in place. So I would watch that. I would watch that inside bar on both currencies.
Mm-hmm.
Are you covering natural gas this week?
No,
Oh,
it did perk up.
yeah.
It's trying, found support where long-term support was, and we got a little bit of a rally, but let's see. We still got to see how it plays out.
It's not bad, if we didn't have this, there's no way to know that there was any support there
Right.
at all.
Right.
There's no way.
That's true.
So putting the square, we know that it's a half a square is 135 degrees down.
Mm-hmm.
We could come down and square out here again.
Yep.
Not sure yet. We'll see what happens. We're waiting for it to really, I mean, we got under all of that base that we had earlier, so we have to kind of really see how this finishes up.
Yeah, we got to see a higher high and a
Yeah,
higher low.
because
And
we had this big, multi-month sort of basing, then we took it down, so now it could be longer. So I wouldn't expect something quick, but
the thing is, Barry, if we do pop above that and start making higher highs and higher lows on a bigger time frame, it's just a false break.
oh, down here, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
on a weekly one, yeah.
Yep.
And we're holding pretty well, so let's see what happens.
Let's watch.
Yeah. So
Your
this,
Hang Seng call was really good.
yeah, this is just a quick SPX cash index we looked at earlier, square
Yeah.
coming up.
Mhm.
Hang Seng, yeah, Hang Seng looks good so
It's
far.
stair stepping higher.
Mm-hmm. And here's that low that we called out,
Mhm.
and it's moving higher. So I think, if we can hold above, let's say the 16,500 or so, right in here, if we can hold above 16,400 even, then we have a shot at 18,000. I think it's doing okay because it's a pretty good reaction, very strong.
It also is a good example of why those ABCDs tracking them are so important because they can terminate a lot of times they do terminate a big move.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you that little bit of extra confidence, right? You kind of know, well,
That's right.
so,
That's right.
which we all need.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's the Dow doing 360, but not quite a square in price. So I'm a little suspect.
You
So
know what? I was talking with a guy on Twitter about that. I said the 360 in time is good, but we don't have a square in price. So the
yeah,
odds favor like maybe we have a little pullback and then make a higher high,
right, right. Something
and
like that.
square out on a higher high in a little bit of time.
Yep. Well, that's all I got. Let me put it back to you.
Excellent.
You cover all the commodities and well, Ben, everything's breaking out to the upside on time. What do we got? 90 bars.
90. Yeah, 90 since the October low. Yes, we're breaking out. We came back. I mean, the interesting thing to me is we pushed above, came back, tested the full square, and now reversed.
Sort of a good positive pullback, right?
That's right.
Because most of
And
it was on the other side of the square.
that's it. And then now we're looking at this 18,622 on the upside because the half square is at that level, and that's where we should push to. We do, as we discussed with, when you were reviewing the ES, we do have the 90, so we got to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the key, as long as we stay above this full square, and by the way, all these levels are on a Google Doc spreadsheet, which I'll send the link to when we post a link to the show. So there's your key, right? As long as we're above this full square, we should come up and test this half square.
Yep.
So it's bullish until we get stuck under that full square. Let me show you a couple other looks because I found something really interesting that I know you'll like.
Let's see.
Monthly
Wow.
from the March low
Uh-huh.
of 2009 to the high this month so far. It's 180 in time, 135 in price.
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good square.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could it blow through that? Absolutely. But as you can see here, we're pressing up against the half square. We're within what, a couple hundred points?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, 150 points, 140 points. That's 18,465. And we've got timing, which is really interesting, is 180 months from here,
Mm,
which was the low in March of '09.
right.
So that's again something to note. Doesn't mean it's going to crash or turn down next week or not make higher highs, but it's something to note that
Mm-hmm.
we're getting a lot of timing coming in this time frame.
Right.
The weekly also, what do I have on the weekly? On the weekly from the October 22 low, which is here to here, 72 weeks.
Wow. That's important.
It's another good number. So let's see. We know going back to the daily, you're not worried if you're bullish until this gives way and clears. And that's 17,900,
Right.
17,900. just using the round number.
Right.
Anything else to add here on NQs?
No, it's on a good run, just like everything else, with timing right at the, right at the door. Doors.
Hey, just like with your review of the ES, everything technically is bullish. Structurally, it's bullish. We have timing windows that are hitting in the next week or so, and now that are pretty major things that we got to see. How does the market react? How does price react based on these time windows? And the good thing is we don't have to predict. We just know the levels, and when the levels are breached, either above or below, and cleared, we know what's more favorable. What's
Yep.
more probable,
Yep.
and that's how we'll play it.
Mhm.
Took a lot of years and a lot of tuition paid to figure out. No need to predict.
That's right.
All right, let's flip over to the star, one of the stars of the show, Bitcoin, and look at this. I was messing around, Barry, just
Mhm.
looking at the chart and look at this ABCD.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. And that's from an October low into the high here. Actually, if I pull it back, it may go up even more right into the high. Let's see. Yep, there you go.
Well, you have another termination one right in there. If you
Hmm.
take the last leg, there's an ABCD there, that one right there.
Yeah,
Man, if they both come into play, then that would be really interesting.
yeah. Let's see.
I might even play it.
That one's got a little higher. That's right on the.
That's pretty good, right on the spot.
Yeah. So
Let's
what are
see.
we saying? And what am I saying?
We're in the
It,
ballpark.
it's late in the game, right? To the upside. Again, doesn't mean it's going to collapse. Looking at these two inside bars, maybe we're going to do like some sort of triangle here, a little flag, and then push up for one more to hit the full square and get that
I mean, if
ABCD.
we're going to put in a high, we got to have a false break. So,
Exactly. And that, if we create a little flag, because we had inside day here, give me another couple inside days, get a little tighter, and then we break out up and on it, up and
mhm,
out,
mhm.
go into that full square. That would be a nice setup. But remember, we've been talking about this since here. Above this was bullish, right? When we held here, bullish. When we cleared here, bullish. When we cleared here, bullish. Above here, bullish. So as long as we're above this half square, it's bullish. And that's the beauty of the squares is they give us a reference point where we can weigh the probabilities. And that's what we're looking at here. So above this level, which is about 60,365 in that area, above that, you're bullish. Below it, then you got to say, okay, now we got to see what's going to happen. Will this hold? Does this hold? Do we start taking out lows? I mean, to get it bearish, we really have to take out these lows here, back around, what is that, 50,600. So let's see. Let's see how it plays out. Anything else to add here on Bitcoin?
No, I think that's a good picture. Let's see how it plays out. We're good.
Oh, I have another one I have to show you. I just
Uh-huh.
was looking at my notes. From this October low
Uh-huh.
here to there, 144 by 144 here. So that again, that doesn't mean it's going to collapse. This leg could have ended. This is why we could go into this consolidation, and then the next move comes. A lot of stuff starting to come into play here, which means we're
Yeah.
closer to the end than we are to the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about the commodities. Good movement this week in a couple things that were going sideways. Remember last week we talked about, hey, a lot of these things are going sideways. They're trying to finish up corrections, so there wasn't a lot to discuss and a lot to show that was actionable. You've already talked about gold and crude, which I'm going to go in. Those are two that were going sideways, and they've made a breakout move. So, and I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at in this commodity space. It's just a matter of watching each one, picking up the bottoming signals and the pattern coming out, being able to say, okay, there's a good probability we got a corner, and then we get involved. For example, weekly and monthly ABCDs completed on soybeans.
Right.
Go check your charts. It doesn't mean we jump in, but it means we got to pay attention now. What happens after those? Do the ABCDs hold? Do the lows on those ABCDs hold? If they do, that's a good sort of piece of evidence that now we can go say, do we find squares? Can we find other things that getting higher highs and higher lows coming out of there on a shorter time frame? But all the grains are still in the progress of putting in those bottoms. I just did notice, and a lot of times I heard some expert on grains was saying that soybeans lead. They
Mhm.
usually put in the bottom first. So let's see. In this case, we know wheat did because wheat still hasn't taken out that low. Um, it did weekly and monthly inside bars. So, we're still trying to get that momentum coming into these grains. But soybeans alert, check your weekly, monthly charts. ABCDs didn't complete. We're going to cover cotton, gold, crude, and then we're going to end with cocoa as more of an instructional site type thing to see what's going on and looking at what's happening, seeing if we can like sort of show you an anatomy of how a corner develops. In this case, it's going to be a top. But let's start off with cotton. So cotton had a really good week going, right? We
Mhm.
busted up and look what we did. We came right into this resistance, this full square resistance, which we know is a spot where if you're long, you can take a few off. You certainly don't want to be adding here unless we can get above and sit on top. Well, we didn't, and we've had 2 down days come right back to the trend line.
Right.
This is a nice pullback. So we're looking for on a shorter time frame to add to the position on a reversal, right? Because
Mhm.
we're pulling back. Now, we could pull all the way back to here and still be bullish, right? Because that's the breakout.
Right.
So this is cotton on the daily. I want to show you um, the higher time frames, and you'll see why we had trouble there at that full square. There's your weekly, right? We came up and tapped it, couldn't get above it, and we pulled back. And so we're pulling back into testing here.
Man, that square is like that's all you need for cotton. Look
It,
at that.
it is a
Why would you
solid,
need anything else?
yeah, really
You know?
solid square. Yep.
Mm.
And so key here is the half square, above 90, call it 90.66. Above that, we're fine because that's the breakout. And so let's give it a little grace. We've had a nice first run. Now let's see what this pullback looks like. This is how things move when they move, right?
Hmm.
They break out, pull back, break out, pull back. And the key is just because we pull back, don't get bearish. Don't lose sight of the big picture. Let's also look at the monthly. I want to show you the monthly because the monthly is interesting. Is that we've got the reverse here, right? We broke out. That's February's bar. Here's today's price action for the start of March, and we pulled back. As long as we could sit on top of this full square on the monthly, look at what we're doing. 21 highs, 2018 highs, 13, 14 highs,
Hmm.
2012, 2011, going back to 2008. So this is a really important spot. Let me just put this on it so you can see looking across. If we hold on here, super bullish, and this could be the launch, right? Like look at it, look at what we did here back in 2010, right? We pushed through this full square. The low came back to test the next month to test this full square breakout, and then look at the move you got in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So cotton is, while it's pulling back, still very bullish. This is the time when you find your spot to add as long as we hold these certain levels.
Hmm.
Anything else to add here to the cotton story?
Well, what was your so I have 92 and a half as the really the better pullback place. If we can stop
Right
above
here,
that, we're in good
right
shape.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. But of
Which is
course
like,
it has space to run, even
mhm,
even to 89, we're in good shape. So
that would be down here. Yeah.
mhm. I mean ideally up there, but
Let's see.
mhm.
Let's see what it's got for us. All
Yeah,
right,
cotton could be a really good trade.
yeah, absolutely. Because again, look at the size of the base that we broke out of.
Hmm.
It was from October, November of 22. That's a nice base.
Yep.
All right, let's go gold. I want to make a couple comments on gold. All right, so there's your daily. Broke out of the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And the key, as long as we stay on top of the half square, which is 2065, we're in
Mm-hmm.
good shape and we're bullish. So don't be surprised the way they mess around with gold if they don't pull back and test that area. But again, this is a good breakout. It's what we've been watching when we were in this triangle. We said, yeah, we're in a triangle. It's kind of frustrating. It's choppy. It's not going anywhere, but it's sitting on top of all this.
Mm-hmm.
And the odds favored a bullish resolution, and we got it. So let's look at the weekly. Really interesting spot here, right? The full square is 2087, 2088. We closed at 2093. Next week, if we can get a full bar on top of this, major, major weekly breakout, right? Because you have the highs here in May of 23. You have the highs here, May of 22, the highs here, August of 20. We would be on top of all of this stuff sitting up there.
Right.
And that's big. And again, we broke out of the triangle. If you do like a simple measurement of the triangle, what do we have? 1988, 2152. So that's 160, 170 points
Yeah.
from the breakout.
Mm-hmm.
Puts you at about 2250 in gold is the target of this triangle. And look where that is, right up here by the full square. So on a weekly basis, this is important. What next week? Watch your weeklies and see if you can stay on top of this, 2088. You can even give it a little bit, like 2075, 2080, 2090 in that area. We stay on top of that. Very, very good that this is one of the real breakouts in gold. If we pull back into it, again, we gotta burn some more time before we really get going. Anything else to add looking at these charts?
Well, it just looks like there was a lot more action upside in gold if we can settle above those places. So we're just watching.
Yep.
It needs
Silver's
to go a
not
little, I mean, obviously it needs to go a little bit more, but that's all right. We're catching it early. So,
what Silver's not quite ready yet.
mhm.
But it had a nice move today. I want to see it push out of this congestion that it's been in, and then we'll jump on silver. Let's go to crude. I want to show you a couple of things. So here's crude testing that long-term trend line, the same one you saw on Barry's chart. That's from the Russian invasion, start of the war with Ukraine spike we had, and we're testing it. But the key thing is look at the curve we're starting to get. You love these patterns, Barry, where we get the curve, right? Because
Yeah,
shows higher lows and higher highs, and
acceleration.
momentum's starting to come in here. The next big thing on the daily for me is the full square, which is around 85,
Mhm.
8509.
Mhm.
We get up there and we battle and we can sit on top of that. Then we open up this, previous highs we saw in September, October, up near 100.
Right.
On a weekly basis, let's look at the weekly. I wanted to show this. Just a simple ABCD here gets us up to around 100. So crude, and again, we're trying to bust that major trend line. Any kind of strength next week and a higher high, and we should break the trend line and break out of this and potentially open up the ABCD. For sure, we open up the full square, which is a little over 89.
89. Yeah.
So crude looks good.
Looks very good. Yep.
I think there's money coming into it. I don't know what it's signaling. I know that I've been reading a lot of the fundamentals on it. The crack spreads, which are the margins they make when they refine the crude,
Mm-hmm.
are as almost at record highs, and they're signaling that the price of crude needs to go a lot higher.
Ah, okay.
And so they're talking about like the fundamentals and the industry is saying there's shortages, and hedge funds are out there shorting crude. So that could be a pretty combustible combination.
Something's gonna get hurt.
Yeah, for this to go a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the last one we want to talk about is cocoa. And as I said, we're going to kind of do this in real time with you for the next few weeks and see if we can't, show you sort of the anatomy of how a top can be built. So here's the daily on cocoa. Now, what is the daily showing that is starting to give you signs of, hey, maybe we need to take a look at this thing going to be topping fairly soon. Let's give you some perspective. So here's the momentum, right? You see it's going at this angle, then we go at this angle, and now we're at the sort of rocket ship vertical angle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting stopped so far, 3, 4 days, getting stuck below this full square. And the full square there is on cocoa, the level's about 64.50, 64.48, 64.50. So what am I looking at? Why is this interesting to me to start, taking measurements and doing things? Well, if you drop down to a 4 hour, you can see we made a push down and now we're coming up and we're potentially going to make a lower high, which will be the first time in a long time, like since August of last year,
Mm-hmm.
where we did this little move here, right? We made a high, came down, made a lower high, and then took off again. Ever since then, we have not made a lower high,
Right.
if you look at swings. So we're watching that. What else do we have that's really important? On the weekly, look at this timing. On the
Wow.
weekly,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 135 by 72 on this last run, 72 weeks. And look at where we are on this timing.
Looking
Here's the
good.
here,
Looking good. Yeah.
yeah, here's the major breakout, and then we've got a 135 by 72.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a nut. Now look at the monthly. Look at that.
Yeah.
72 by 72 run. So 72 months we've made this run here.
Well,
And it's
after a little
72
bit of
up,
sleepy time, that big old consolidation and
and there's your massive squeeze. But look at the timing, man. That's time and price right there.
mm-hmm.
From here to here was a 45 degree move, right? In price.
Right, right.
And it did it in what, 6 months, 5 months?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not saying go out and short cocoa or do anything with cocoa. What this is this is the type of stuff when something gets extended and we start having timing come up that you then start looking at structure. So you go down to the daily. The question is, do we get a lower high? Do we get stuck under here? That's the next piece of evidence that we have to see, right? Do we have a high, a low, a lower high, and a lower low?
Right.
Because that's how it starts. The reason why it's interesting to me to look at and to monitor closely is on the higher time frames, the weekly, monthly, we're getting good squares coming in, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
the 135 by 72 on a weekly, a good square. The monthly, 72 by 72, good square. So it in my opinion, it bears watching.
Mm-hmm.
Barry, what are the other types of things? Because I think this is how we'll end the discussion for this show.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at corners, in addition to the things that I pointed out, what are you looking for? What's the evidence that you want to see where you can start stacking it up and say,
Yeah.
okay, this thing is flipped from bull to bear?
Well, it's kind of, if you guys are watching how we did, well, how we've done the S&P in the past at some of these markets that we think, it squares out, then we wait for the evidence, confirmation, the pattern doesn't show up and it breaks higher above the square,
Mhm.
and then it moves higher. Nvidia is a good example. We had squares on a weekly, daily, all these levels, and then we said, look, if it breaks above the square, like in your
It's
case,
bullish,
in the
right?
case of cocoa, it'll be like, let's say we say 270, right? That's the square. Now, if we
Yep.
break out above it, it'll open up all the way to 360.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what the squares are. They just lay out forever, There's no end to squares. And
Right.
and there are no, and there is really no end to prices. So we're not trying to front run the
Predict.
market. Yeah, we're not
No.
trying to front run it. We're trying to go with it. That's kind of the sort of the way to I mean, how else are you going to trade, right? You can't jump in front of it. So we use the squares like the square here um to gauge to see if we're going to get the follow up, sort of the patterns that normally show up at a high. And at low, it'll be a little bit different, but let's say high. So if this is really high, it squares out. Obviously, we're looking for that first lower high. That's really the place. If it blows through, well, then you wait for the next pullback and you trade the other side. I think that's the most reasonable way. We can
Yeah.
look for other things. I mean, other thing you were asking about other things. Well, other thing is we want confirmation. We want the market to confirm that, hey, that square actually terminated the leg.
And that confirmation comes in the form of structure, right? Higher
Exactly.
highs, higher lows, lower highs, lower lows.
And that's what we're looking for. I mean, it can come with other counts. We might have other short-term counts. We saw that ABCD in Bitcoin. So we'll
Hmm.
see short-term things starting to terminate. It doesn't have to be a big monthly ABCD like we saw, in Tesla the other day. It doesn't
Right.
have to be really big ones. It could be a square and a simple ABCD or some other pattern that terminates a leg. So we're looking for a couple, two, three things, but most importantly, what we're looking for is sort of evidence to confirm it, right? Because that's what we want. We want confirmation post event.
Yes.
And so we lean towards that. Um, because a high could be put in with a simple square. It doesn't need a whole lot, but like I said, if we have two or three things, nice. It's very nice to have unrelated tools giving you, sort of pointing to the same direction.
Right. But
And
you can see on like this monthly, we know if we get above this level here, it's still got more to run.
exactly, that's the whole
And
point.
that correlates with the daily, right? If we make new highs and we get above the full square here, it's
Yeah,
got more to run.
yeah, exactly. And you can look at little things like if you look at this chart, I mean, this is the daily. If
Hmm.
you look at that, if you go to that high before this one, the lower high right there.
Hmm.
So if you draw a horizontal line on there, which is pretty much the 1/8 line, but if you can drop a horizontal line on there.
Hold on.
Mhm. You see that space between that and last week's low? Greater that space is, the more bullish it is.
That's
So
correct.
so we have to, it's good to put those are the kind of places where I throw a box in there and we'll kind of watch it, you know, just to
Hmm.
see what happens. And long as it's above that, it's very, very bullish. There's no question. And we have the half square. And I think the main thing is the 270. Um, I think we have enough here. I mean, you've shown some crazy counts. so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think we have enough. And I mean, it's good either way, right? If it terminates, yeah, there might be a trade, but I don't know how far it'll pull back given like the bigger picture, because we could correct for a few months and then rally again, because we saw that monthly trade being so huge. I mean,
Hmm.
the breakout after that consolidation.
Yeah. Let me show
At
that
the
on
same time, if
monthly.
it breaks to the upside, boy, we have a lot more. At least we have, at least one more square. So that's up at 135 on your
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
got to watch all that. On a monthly, we can pull back inside day. I mean, heck, we can put in 6-month consolidation and start up again, right? So
Absolutely.
we're
I mean, you could see it doing like a flag here potentially
uh-huh.
and in this half square and then going again.
Yeah. But it looks good. But yeah, I think just to make the point is really you want, once you have something that could potentially terminate a leg, then you want to see the evidence of it. Proof.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to talk about this week? I know we got the timing. We got a lot of timing this week that we got to be aware of. What else are you focused on for the coming week?
Well, I mean, this whole complex of, Bitcoin, dollar, gold is very interesting, and bonds. I'm just trying to see how it's all going to resolve and if any of them are going to give a decent trade. I mean, the dollar's poised to give a, you know, trade when it breaks out. So I'm watching the dollar. Gold, we talked about how if we take the highs out, we have really good support below, so we could really go.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Bitcoin, the gold. you and I have talked about the epic cycle a lot, and I talk a lot about it with Dale Pinkert when I do the interviews with him.
Uh-huh.
And a couple of the plays that are directly related to that, and sort of the deterioration and the lack of trust in centralized institutions, they're Bitcoin and gold.
Right.
And I talk about Bitcoin, gold, and silver. And silver's the only one that's not moving a lot yet, but Bitcoin and gold, when you say, man, something's going on, that's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of, with this epic cycle coming in, and people's sense of a lack of trust in these institutions, they're expressing it by buying gold and by buying Bitcoin.
And not just people, but countries.
Countries, central banks, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
big
That's right.
entities.
So it's really interesting how all this stuff perked up, in the last week or so, in the last couple of weeks, you can see.
And a lot of, we had, I mean, we talk about daily, these smaller cycles, but talking about this larger cycles, looking at that, it just looks like we're not going to have any boring markets going forward, as far as I can
Nope.
see. So I think this is really a time to trade, but then not just throwing money, but learn to trade, and you can trade effectively because we
Trade
have
with an
volatility,
edge.
man. We have trending markets, we have volatility. I mean, everything you need.
Yeah,
So it's not going to be sleepy, and that's the best part.
that is, because it can be really frustrating just sitting on your hands every day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, look at cocoa. I mean, look at cotton getting started. There are, and the other
Yeah.
ones will, in turn
And
get
crude
growth.
stepping up this week,
Yeah, yeah.
Nat gas, you talked about short,
Hmm.
looks like we potentially have a low in there. We just got to see how that develops. But it's this I think that we're seeing kind of a shift in money, that money's going to flow maybe out of equities once it, gets its highs, and, we can, find those highs and triangulate that,
Hmm.
and maybe coming into the commodity space, because the commodities have been basically correcting for a year and a half, 2 years now,
Right,
most of them. So
right.
we'll see.
Yeah.
As you said, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be a very active year, and that's certainly playing out. But listen,
Mhm.
everybody, if you like what we do, we appreciate all the support. You guys did a great job with the channel and getting us, more subscribers, and we're starting to do those monthly videos. I mean, those weekly videos on the single
Mhm.
stocks, and we're going to continue to do that. Please, send the link to friends, get people to subscribe, because we really want to build the channel this year, and we appreciate
Mhm.
the support. Great job on your review, Barry. I think we did a really good job of covering the fact that we're coming into a time window. Doesn't mean everything is going to V and reverse from what it's doing, but it means you got to be diligent, and you got to watch price action and see what the effect of those cycles are. So rest up, as we always say, for the weekend, and be ready to go, because with these cycles coming in next week, it should be an active week.
Yep, for sure.
Take care, everybody, and we'll speak to you on the single stock video
Next
early next
Tuesday.
week on Tuesday.
Mhm.
Yeah, Tuesday's our day.
Good. Thanks, Ben.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.
Thanks.